I begin with a prayer from Chandi, which we heard just now. It's also known as Devi Mahatmya and Durga Saptashati. There are several names. So I'll recite only one verse, which has already been recited. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti-rupena samstita Namastasyai 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 Namo Namaha. I prostrate again and again to the Divine Mother who manifests herself as the divine power in all beings. So, welcome all of you. This is our fourth retreat here in Leicester. And I decided to speak on this particular topic, which was very dear to Swami Vivekananda, because he believed that Sri Ramakrishna incarnated in this age to establish the worship of the Divine Mother. Of course, the Divine Mother has been worshipped in India, especially in India and other countries as well, from time immemorial. But the true significance of the worship of the Divine Mother, not only as a divine power, but one who creates, preserves, and destroys this universe, this created world, is an idea which is there not only in our Vedas, but later literature in India, which constitute what is known as tantras. So this tantras idea of worshipping God as the divine feminine, which represents creativity or creation. Because according to Hindu philosophy, especially the old philosophy of Sankhya, as you all know, there are 6 systems of philosophy. And Sankhya and Yoga, Patanjali's Yoga, they are very close to each other as far as the philosophy is concerned. There are other philosophies like Vedanta, which is, of course, a development of the ideas that were developed in Sankhya, Yoga, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, and Purva Mimamsa, which is the Karma Kanda of Vedas. All these 6 darshanas are based on the Vedas, obviously. So the seed of mother worship or worship of the divine or God as the mother is a very old idea, at least in the Indian tradition or the Vedic tradition. But unfortunately, we have to understand, as the Tantras or the Devi Mahatmya, if you have heard all the verses that were recited just now, there are many powers, the divine powers which were described, Ya Devi, Shakti Rupena, Shuddha Rupena, that is hunger, then there was Daya Rupena, compassion, and also Bhranti Rupena, delusion, ignorance. So one may wonder why the negative aspects of power are described. From the ultimate standpoint, if you see, there is no negative or positive. Power is power. It's the way we use it, how we use it. It will determine its positive quality or the negative quality. For example, fire has the power to burn. It can be used for cooking, it can be used for burning something. So also the knife, it can be used by a surgeon and it can be used for killing. So essentially, according to the Tantras or the philosophy of Sankhya, which gave birth to the philosophy of yoga, there are two entities. They have explained the whole phenomena of reality as we understand it or as we experience it. So one is known as Purusha, the pure principle of consciousness, and there's another principle of Prakriti, or in Tantras it is known as Shiva and Shakti. Shiva is not the god which you see here, the picture of Shiva. Shiva is a principle which represents pure consciousness. Of course, when we worship Shiva, we worship him with the idea that he is of the nature of pure consciousness. And we worship Shakti in various forms. It can be Durga, it can be Kali, it can be any other feminine form. We worship Shakti, who is responsible, like Prakriti, for the creation, preservation, and destruction of the phenomenal universe that we see around us. So, Sankhya and Yoga posits two realities side by side. Though Advaita will say Shakti is nothing but Maya, but let us not go into philosophical discussion. According to Sankhya, according to Yoga, Prakriti is very much real. It's real. Its positive side is real. Its negative side is equally real. So when you have to face reality, when you have to face Prakriti, the idea of Prakriti, we can't expect the divine power to be merely positive, always beneficial, though we may like that power to be beneficial, always kind to us. But unfortunately, as I said, the fire can be used either way. It can be used to burn or it can be used to cook. So though Purusha or Shiva, the pure consciousness, is a neutral aspect of reality, there is an aspect which is known as the divine power. So the topic today is Mother as a divine power. Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Shakti Rupena Samstisa. So I'm just well, let us just discuss the Shakti aspect. So now we come to the modern, when we come to modern science, they have tried to explain this universe or reality in their own way without entering into any dialogue. In fact, the scientific community, those who claim to be very scientific in their approach, they say this idea of God is just a delusion. We don't need God to explain the universe. You can just explain it by very crudely by saying there is something known as matter, there's something known as force. So matter and force, later on they found, when they went deeper and deeper into the reality which is known as matter, separate realities which were known as matter, and force which conjures up this whole universe, the universe that we see, the created universe. So investigation into the nature of the universe, according to modern science, analytical science, they say we don't need, this universe is self-explanatory. That's their idea. Richard Dawkins, the famous Oxford writer, in fact, he says he wrote a book, The God Delusion. So we can very well live without God. We don't need the idea of God. It's just confusing, according to him. It's not a very logical argument, but anyway, he believed, as many scientists believe, that the idea of God is not necessary for our survival. Science can explain everything. You know how to handle matter. You know how to handle force. You do all the investigations, try to find out the cause and effect behind all the natural phenomena, whatever is there in this universe, and that is sufficient. It can teach you how to live wisely if you really decide to do that, or maybe kill each other by using the forces of science in a destructive way. So, anyway, science can solve, according to people who believe that the idea of God is either not necessary or is just a delusion. So, according to science, then, as I said, they accept the idea that there is a power which is also, they call it as force, which, when impinges upon matter in various ways, gives rise to different phenomena. The force can be electric force, electromagnetic force, gravitational force. So they classified the forces into different forces which perform different functions. But when they went deep enough, they found that there are a lot of delusions in science as well. Science is not able to explain everything, though they claim they are trying to. So there was another famous scientist who decided to counter this book, and he wrote a book. His name is Rupert Sheldrake from Cambridge. So he said the science delusion. So he said just as the idea of God is a delusion according to, it would not be scientific to say that science doesn't have delusions. They cannot define anything and do not come to a definite conclusion. For example, how was the universe created? How are the forces interchangeable? How force becomes matter and matter becomes force? Though they say they observe these things, so they cannot explain. And they give some hypothesis. They uh, place some hypothesis without any proof and say we are science as it advances will come with better and better answers, but they don't have the perfect answer either. So he said, this scientist was honest enough. He said it's not good to just call all ideas of God, reality, religion as mere delusion, as some of the scientists did. So he said science has its own delusion. So when we consider this idea of God as the Divine Mother, let us see what our people, our people in the sense the Vedic people, or the tantras and the different systems that were developed after based on the Vedas. What were their ideas about mother as a divine power? First of all, the idea of mother, why not a father? Because most of the Semitic religions, they address God as their father. Most of the religion, I'm not saying all. There is, of course, there are some maybe religious sects which call God as address reality as the mother. But normally it is Father in heaven or our Father who is, God is addressed normally as the Father. But in India, equal importance or sometimes even more importance was given to the idea of God as mother, primarily because as a mother she is more accessible or she is more tangible. Prakriti is more tangible than Purusha, though we are by our very nature Purushas or Shivas, the pure conscious principle is always there. It never goes. That is the only principle that is always there, is eternally present. But at the same time, we are not conscious of it. We are conscious of the changing world, which our philosopher said. We gave the different names. One is Prakriti, Shakti, or so many other names. This phenomenal world is described. So, whatever changes you see in this universe, or the universe that is tangible to us, to all perceivable by us, is made of three phases, you can say. They're not all happening at the same time, obviously. There is this, what is known as creation. An object is created. The plants, the seeds give rise to a sprout grows into a tree, and then finally it grows old, and when the lifespan is over, it dies. So also with human beings, animals, we see the cycle of creation. So according to the Vedas, according to the Tantra philosophy, according to the Sankhya philosophy, the world moves about in cycles. So this triad of creation, preservation, and destruction was symbolically described by three principal ideas or gods: Brahma, Vishnu, and Maheshwara, that is the Lord of destruction. It's not that one is more important than the other. Just as creation is part of Prakriti, preservation is also part of Prakriti. So they say, well, let us call it Vishnu. Brahma is a creator. It's just a way of explaining the process of creation. And all this put together is Shakti. So when we say Mother as the divine power, we mean power to create, power to preserve, sustain, as long as its nature allows it to. And when the time is ripe, it gets destroyed. So this cycle of creation is what ordinary people like us understand. When you say consciousness, to attain to true consciousness, then you'll have to go deeper. It's understood only through intuition by spiritual practice. The rishis found that for a majority of the people, to focus one's attention on Shiva or Purusha is difficult, though our real nature is that. But because of the constant changes that influence us, we are more comfortable with change rather than the pure unchanging consciousness, which is our true nature. So all the reading that Sanaya did just now on spiritual practice, if you see carefully, it is nothing but all the teachings, all the lines that she read point to one thing, that this transformatory nature of the universe, transformatory nature of the mind, which gives rise to this universe. Mind is nothing, according to Vedanta or yoga, mind is nothing but subtle matter or subtle force. It's also a force. There may be different forces, electromagnetic forces, then heat, sound. Sound is also a force. Sound can be perceived, can be heard, it can transform, sound can destroy. We have lasers, we have light. So there are different forces. Similarly, according to Vedanta, thought is also a fine force. And we cannot ignore it. In fact, it is finer. The finer a force, the more powerful it is. So, Swami Vivekananda in his Raj Yoga, explaining the Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, he says this whole universe is made of Akasha and Prana, like what the scientists would prefer to say. They would not say consciousness, though they want to understand the nature of consciousness, but they will say matter and force. That is how the universe is accepted or interpreted. So also they say Akasha and Prana. Akasha is the space, or all the material universe is part of this Akasha. Akasha is the finest matter, and upon that there is this idea of Prana, which is impinging upon this Akasha. So matter and force interact upon each other to give rise to this wonderful universe that we see around us. So sometimes the force changes into matter, matter changes into force. Those who know physics, it's a very obvious truth. So the cause and effect, if you burn something, you produce energy. If many things are energy is condensed, you get matter. So it is very well known in quantum physics that you cannot exactly tell whether reality has a wave, is it a wave or a particle? Suddenly, a particle appears to be a wave at a micro quantum level. They found they were flabbergasted. So when we say this is matter, but when we go deep, they find matter vanishing into what is known as waves or energy packets. So matter and energy is converting into each other or being converted into each other at a very rapid pace, which we cannot conceive. With our normal eyes, we see matter as matter, force as force in a very gross way. So that is exactly the idea which our Shakti, the Tantras give a lot of importance to one particular force, that is thought force. But next to that, among the forces that we recognize, they give a lot of importance to sound. Even Vedanta gives a lot of importance to the sound. So that is why we have in our tradition the idea of Shabda Brahman. Brahman is, of course, pure consciousness, but when it manifests, the idea, though it may appear to be rather superstitious or peculiar, it manifests first as sound. It's a very great discovery made in our Upanishads when they call it as Shabda Brahman. So Brahman, of course, is pure consciousness. There is no change in that. It is the same eternal consciousness, awareness behind all our actions. Whether we are small when we grow up, there are changes in the body, but as the feeling of I, which the ego may change, but the pure consciousness, witness, I am the witness. I was the boy, I was the young man, I become the old person, and one day I die. That I remains constant throughout, though we are not always aware. We think this I is changing. My I as a small child and my I today may be different. I may think I was very ignorant at that time, eating chocolates and all those things. But now I have grown up. Has the I grown up? No, the I is same. The consciousness behind what has changed is the forces and the matter and the forces, Akasha and Prana, interacting upon each other. And one of the pranas or one of the pranas is known as sound. So that is why I'm very fond of repeating this wonderful line from the Bible, which says, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. There's something very significant. It comes so close to Vedanta. Vedanta explains this whole universe as made of Nama and Rupa. There is a sound, it may be subtle, it may not be uttered. When you utter it, it becomes through your lips, through your throat and the vocal cords, it becomes physical sound. But there is a anahata dhvani. Ahata means that which is a result of vibration. But before the vibration took place, before you uttered, say for example, Om, before you uttered it, where was Om? Om was there, it was in a subtle form. That is also a power. So that is why it is known as Shabda Brahman. Brahman which manifests itself first as sound, and then sound means name, and then it acquires a form. It may be difficult to understand, let us not go deep into that. But the idea is this whole universe is a interplay of matter and force, which are interconvertible. Matter doesn't remain matter all the time. So when we say divine power, mother as the divine power, what we mean is the power which sometimes appears as matter, sometimes appears as force. So when you say Shakti, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, who resides in all the beings as the power, or more precisely put, she is not only residing as a power which is controlling the beings. The beings themselves are manifestation of the gross manifestation of that subtle power. The same power, which is energy, and physics, quantum physics will corroborate that. They'll say that the same power which appeared as waves, sometimes it will take the form of particles. And you'll see a universe. And the moment you identify that particle, suddenly it becomes a wave. So this transformation from energy into matter and matter into energy is going on. That is exactly what Shakti is all about. When you say divine power, it means not only the capacity of that Shakti to create, to preserve, but at the same time destroy. So, where does the matter go? It gets, according to science, he says the explanation is simple. You don't have to uh, take up this concept of divine mother and divine feminine and all. Can we not just explain it? It is interconvertible. If the matter gets destroyed, if uranium gets destroyed, it converts itself into tremendous energy. Finished. Matter goes, but the energy can be converted back into matter. So, can we not just use these two things to explain things? What's the need? The need is there because when we talk of reality, when we want to understand what is God, what is reality, God is just nothing, a name given for our idea, our limited idea of reality. So the ideas of gods also changes. For some people, the idea of God is somebody who sits somewhere, maybe in Vaikuntha or anywhere else, who listens to our prayers, our simple needs, because we need power. We have limited power. We can't always get what we want. No matter how many desires we have, we can't always get with our own Shakti, our own power, we can't get. So we posit a divine power somewhere. We just begin with belief, go to temples, pray, do so many rituals, all for one purpose, that I don't have enough power, O mother, or whether you worship God as feminine or masculine, Krishna, Rama, or Shakti. It doesn't matter. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, all the manifestations of God are manifestations of Shakti. It's a tremendous statement he makes. Even Rama, if he has to be born, he has to be come under the purview of Shakti, because he is also born as a human being or as a divine being, but any being, and he has to sustain himself for some time, and then the body will be destroyed. So everything that is created will have a sustenance period, and then there will be destruction. So everything comes under Shakti. So in Bengali, Sri Ramakrishna says in the Gospel, Shakti Avatar. Whenever there is a manifestation of the divine as a prophet, as a avatar, as they say, any sort of, even a tiny worm, it is a manifestation of Shakti. The very idea of creation or the creative power implies that there is this Shakti which has manifest herself as this universe. So everywhere, every verse of the hymn that was recited, this great hymn from the Chandi, Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu. In all beings, in all this created world or universe, galaxies, everywhere, wherever there is creation, in that she comes in different forms. That is the idea. She comes as compassion, Daya Rupena. She can make somebody compassionate. She can cause delusion in some. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Bhranti Rupena. Bhranti will come. There will be delusion. She is responsible for making some people ignorant, some people wise. Buddhi Rupena. She may give buddhi if she chooses to anyone whom she chooses. I mean, she can project herself as Bhranti, as Daya, as Shakti, and all the list, hunger, Kshuddha. So, all these forces, positive as well as negative, that we see around us, is nothing but forces of this universal principle known as Prakriti or Shakti. So now when we try to apply this principle and think of reality as the mother, the divine mother. Actually, the word here was mother, but I should have put it as the divine mother, because the idea of mother implies physical creation only, a physical mother, a biological mother. But one who creates these universes is the Shakti, the divine Shakti or the divine mother. That is what Sri Ramakrishna worshipped. And why did he worship Shakti? Because he says in the gospel several times, he says, the goal is no doubt to realize oneself as pure consciousness, as Shiva. But without Shakti's grace, you cannot reach there. Because we are under the jurisdiction of this divine power, which is known as the Divine Mother. And he says, though it is not mandatory, because Advaitins also, they do not believe in this Shakti, idea of Shakti, they'll rather call it Maya. But even Shankaracharya, if you see, he composed so many songs, Saundarya Lahiri, all praises Bhavani Ashtakam, and so many wonderful hymns on the Shakti, because he knew, as Sri Ramakrishna knew, that without the power of Shakti, as the Divine Mother, one cannot make spiritual progress. She can give us power to succeed, or if we, she can also, use the same power in a negative way and retard our progress, create some Bhranti. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna said it is to establish this idea of God as the Divine Mother who can help us if we are really eager, if we are really sincere, and if we are yearning to know that reality. By her grace, everything becomes easy. That is the great idea of God as the divine power. Now, when we come to this idea of divine power, it manifests, as I said, it manifests as divine physical power, forces of creation, physical sustenance. We need all these powers. Then the energy within us, we need to rejuvenate it. When we feel weak, when we feel tired, we need some infusion of prana, which is also Shakti. We need material development, we need development of our energy levels, stooping energy levels whenever they are down. So we pray to the mother for all sorts of powers. It's not that she comes to give only physical powers, though many people would like, because that is the most tangible thing. If if you speak of wealth, for example, we have this goddess Lakshmi. 99% of the people will worship Lakshmi so that they can earn wealth, because which is a tangible object. Lakshmi is actually the goddess of fortune. But do we really ask Lakshmi for spiritual fortune? We need fortune even to do spiritual practices. But the moment you say Lakshmi, you ask a common man, why does he worship Lakshmi? It's for the coins. Maybe gold coins earlier, now maybe notes. So that is the popular idea of Lakshmi as the goddess. She is a divine power. She can grant gross power, she can give fine power, subtle power. She can give even the powers of the mind, and she can also give Shanti. Ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Shanti Rupena Samstita. Now it all depends on what we ask. If a child goes and asks for chocolates, you can't tell him chocolates are, it's foolish to eat chocolates and be happy. There are many better things you can eat. But he says, I like this. I just want these chocolates. So mother is impartial. Just as she has so many children, small, big, grown up. So according to the needs of the child, Sri Ramakrishna used to tell he had a wonderful way of expressing all these things. If we read the gospel, all our intricate ideas of philosophy are solved. He says the mother knows what suits the child's stomach. If it is an infant, it won't give him solid food. It will give some soft food. But as the child grows up, she knows that this child has grown up, it can digest better things. So I can give better food items. So whatever suits one, the mother, divine mother, so kindly gives everything that the child wishes. So for spiritual aspirants, it becomes imperative. That is why you see these graded prayers. You pray for so many things. In this Chandi, you are worshipping Devi as manifesting different powers. Some are good, some are higher powers, like Shanti Rupena. The idea of Shakti may appear to many people because they want Shakti, they want to do something. So, to do something, you need Shakti. They said, we'll bother about Shanti later on. When we acquire something, when we get Shakti, and when there is this accumulation of power, then there is a lot of turbulence. Then the person thinks, foolishly, I asked for all these things, all these headaches. So now I want Shanti. So the mother won't tell you, they just aspire for Shanti. She comes as Shakti also. She comes as Bhranti also. Because right now I'm happy with the status quo, whatever I have, let me just preserve it. I want wealth, I want all these things. But when I am restless, when all these things do not give me the necessary peace, or maybe at a very advanced stage, I find that all these things which I yearned for, which I've accumulated, perhaps they will not go with me when I die. At that time, then the prayer changes. He said, with all this wealth, somehow you have taken away my peace. So then we say, oh, ya Devi Sarva Bhuteshu, Shanti Rupena Samstita. So you come to me as peace. Now I had enough. Lot of turbulence in my head, in my surroundings, everywhere I see turbulence because of all the things which I mistakenly asked you. No matter how compassionate you were and gave me all those things, now you have made me realize that what I need is peace. Can you give me that? Yes, mother is there. So she takes us through all these steps. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, Patanjali has given a wonderful Patanjali's commentator, Vyasa. He wrote a commentary to the sutras. So, the role of Prakriti. Why does she do all this, make us go through Bhranti, go us to this Shakti Rupena, this, Shuddha, so many things, so many powers are there. Which one should I aspire for? So, very nicely, Vyasa, commenting upon Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he says the mother is like he gives an example. Say, mother wants to take a child to see the Mela. Mela is in India, if you see, it's so much of chaos. I mean, it's good to go there because the child is curious to know many things, and there are so many wonderful variety of items, toys, this, that. So, Mela is something which is very desirable, especially for young children. But Patanjali gives this example, or rather, Vyasa gives this example. You know how mother is, how Prakriti is. Why does Prakriti make us go through all this struggle? So he says, the commentator says, like a mother whose child is crying, he wants to go to the Mela, he wants to go to the fair and enjoy himself. So I said, okay, I'll take you to the fair. And sees this thing, he wants to see that, he wants to see other things. And wherever the child says, obviously the mother has to take him through all that stuff. So Prakriti is like that. It's a wonderful example. And then when the child is tired, when he says, let us go home, I'm hungry, or I just want rest, my legs are hurting. So it is she who takes him back. That is exactly the role of Prakriti. She says, we are something one with the Purusha. In yoga, they say Purusha is the only unchanging reality, full of peace, bliss. In Vedanta, they will say Satchidananda. Sat, Chit, and Ananda, pure consciousness, pure bliss. Because there is no change, no creation, no sustenance, no destruction. So whenever something is created, you are always anxious. If you earn money, you are anxious, you may lose it. If you have good health, you are always anxious that I may fall sick. When you are young, you may feel that I'm slowly growing old. Nobody likes to grow old. So that anxiety, that worry is something which is the very nature of Prakriti, because she is of the nature of change. Her very nature is to change. But the mother is kind enough. She can take you, she makes the child, in this case the human soul, the sadhaka, the one who practices yoga, he has been compared to a small child. So Prakriti is like a mother who takes the child through all these experiences. Because if you say you finish your mela, we'll stop midway, he'll cry. He'll say, no, I want to see everything. Only when he's tired, she will say, okay, now you're tired, I'll take you back home. And he will cry. Maybe she has to carry that child. But she will take him home. So exactly the role of Prakriti is like that. Prakriti is neutral. If the child at a earlier stage, if she had said that I'm already tired, you take me back home, she would have taken him. But if he says, I want to play, she said, then play. Play or see whatever, enjoy whatever you want till you are tired. So the idea of Prakriti, the changing Prakriti, the divine power, it works both ways. It can delude you, can cause Bhranti in you, but it can also give you Shanti. When you feel the need for that, it won't force. I mean, the force or the mother, divine mother, she won't force. She won't force because it is her own creation and she enjoys the play. Most of these wonderful Bengali songs, if you see, so many, before Sri Ramakrishna was incarnated, if you find the Kamala Kanta, so many series of Shakti worshippers were there. If you read some of these wonderful poems or songs, they're not just songs, they are their experiences, what they saw when they worshipped the Divine Mother. So they see Mother both, the one who is punishing the child, and when the child cries, the same mother takes that child on the lap. So they've used all their imagination to explain the discrepancy you see in this universe. We try to think this is good and we follow it, and when we find it to be not so good as we expected, then we turn to something else. And everywhere, Mother is always there, providing us necessary power to follow our wish, to follow our desire. And ultimately, when you feel the desires are just creating havoc in your life, you say, now I have no desire now except to go back to my source. Then she is the one who takes you. So she is the one who can. Uh, so that's why it becomes very important, according to Sri Ramakrishna, that worshipping God as the Divine Mother, as the divine power, no doubt. But the divine power, if you worship her as the divine power with the qualities of a mother, because the mother, as Shankaracharya famously says, he was an Advaiti and he didn't believe in Shakti and all those things. But still, he wrote that wonderful stanza where says, there can be a bad son or a bad daughter, but there cannot be a bad mother. Mother is always good. She ultimately wishes good of the child. But the fact that the child does not listen, says, okay, temporarily you pass through all these experiences. She helps him in that, helps the child in that also. It's not that she will say, this is the best for you, so you should not try. She will just, she's totally neutral. Prakriti, that way, as it is explained in the Sankhya, she is a very neutral force. She is Shakti, no doubt, but very neutral. So the way our buddhi, that buddhi also is given by that Shakti, which is a result which makes us practice spirituality. So when we do our spiritual practices, we normally ask, as the famous even Gayatri mantra, it's also a feminine deity. Gayatri is also feminine. So we pray to that divine power, Gayatri, which is the source of the power behind the sun. Sun by sun doesn't mean the physical sun, but the light of knowledge. I pray, Bhuvaswaha Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yona Prachodayat. Please, I meditate on that supreme Shakti known as Gayatri or Savitri. I worship her so that she enlightens my buddhi. That is the highest prayer. So that's why Yadevi Sarva Bhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstita. So when we begin our spiritual journey, we begin by worshipping her as Buddhi. I mean, when we start our spiritual journey, we may worship her as Shakti, we may worship her as Kshuda and all the other Bhranti. We may worship in various ways. She will fulfill our wishes, no doubt. But when we pray to her as Buddhi Rupena Samstita or as in the Gayatri, so all the mantras, all the prayers are focused on only one principle, that is, let my buddhi or the spiritual wisdom or the awareness be to say, তোমাদের চৈতন্য হোক, let your consciousness be awakened. So great avatars like Sri Ramakrishna will say, that is the highest blessing I can give you, because mother can give that, and if you pray to the mother, she will definitely grant you that. So that is why when they all asked for his grace, he said, what more can I grant you? I can only I can only wish that may your consciousness be awakened. May the mother manifest in your heart as Buddhi, Ya Devi, Sarva Bhuteshu, because she is capable of manifesting herself as Buddhi. That is the essential of all spiritual practices. Whether you do japa, whether you go from the gross to the subtle, what is japa, what is mantra, what is prayer, everything is directed towards the awakening of the Buddhi within. That is why in the Indian tradition, the divine is always meditated upon in the heart. So that is known as Chidakasha. This is a wonderful idea which Sri Ramakrishna explains in the Gospel. There was a very big Vedantin whose name was Krishna Kishore. He was a great philosopher. I mean, always a Pandit, like normally Pandits are. A great scholar, always talking of philosophy. And Sri Ramakrishna loved him because he was genuine, though he was showing off his scholarship. So then he says, in philosophy there is they discuss this way, the different tattvas, 5 tattvas, we go from Prithvi up, water, liquid, solid, liquid, then gaseous, then fire, Agni, then Vayu, and then finally you come to Akash. That is translated as space, but it is not just the physical space. Akasha means, Sri Ramakrishna explains that. So this Krishna Kishore used to say, because that is how the sadhakas in that particular philosophy meditate. Said, I am not Prithvi, I am not liquid, I'm slowly they transcend. They want to feel that they are Akasha. So they want to go to the level where they feel one with the Akasha and then they can transcend. Of course, you have to transcend the 5 Pancha-tattvas or 5 elements. That is a very important philosophy accepted by Sankhya, accepted by all philosophies. 5 tattvas, it's very easy to understand. Solid, that is Prithvi, earth, that is solid, anything that is solid. Then a slightly subtler form, that is liquid. Then we have Agni, the energy, the prana. And then we have Vayu, that is the gaseous. But what is this Akasha? Sri Ramakrishna makes some fun with this Krishna Kishore. Whenever any issue was discussed before him, he was a very sincere person, but man of tremendous faith. He used to say, I am not the Prithvi, I am nothing. I don't care. I am the Akasha. I am Kha. In Bengali, the short form of Akasha is known as Kha. So he used to always, and Thakur used to make fun. Oh, you are Kha, means you have transcended and you have gone to the level of Akasha. Then one day, when he goes to his house, very interesting incident happens. The tax people have come and he had not paid tax. So they said, we'll take away all your belongings because you have to pay. Then he was worried, he was tremendously anxious. Then Sri Ramakrishna said, let them take all the utensils and all. You are Kha. How will it affect you? They are taking some Prithvi, they'll take some other things. Why are you bothered? You are Kha. All the time you are saying you are Kha. I mean, what his point was that it's easy to say, but you have to be grounded in reality, where we are. So, this idea of spirituality or spiritual practice, where Ya Devi Sarvabhuteshu Buddhi Rupena Samstita, when we say how to attain that Buddhi and what is the way. If we follow this method, by which Krishna Kishore wanted to, that is, we go from grosser to the subtle. So we do that prayer. When we then we come to what is this idea of Akasha. Why do we go there? Because that Akasha, Sri Krishna, you see, all this, it's such a complicated philosophy, but he explains it in very simple way. He says there are three Akashas. Kha means, or space means, our idea of space is this space, physical space. Yes, that is space. It is known as Mahakasha. Sri Ramakrishna says there are three Akashas. Do you know that? You see, he was never went to school, never went to uh, attend any classes on philosophy, but and these pandits had to learn from him. So he tells Krishna Kishore, or tells in some other place, Sri Ramakrishna says, you know, there is one Mahakasha. Mahakasha is the physical space. The space covered by this earth, the galaxies, the innumerable galaxies, the whole cosmos. So you can imagine this physical space. It goes on and on and on. You cannot even conceive of what that space is. But still, we get a rough idea of what Mahakasha is. Then he says, second Akasha, when you do your spiritual practices, you come to another space, which is known as Chittakasha. Chitta means mind stuff. So Chittakasha means that Akasha which your mind creates. Say, for example, you are dreaming or you are just closed your eyes. You have no sense of Akasha. But your mind can take you to different planets, stars. You can imagine anything. Your mind can imagine and create its own space. So that is why the bowls, there are some beautiful songs of the Bengali bowls. They are very great philosopher. There's great philosophy in their simple songs. They are practically illiterate people and they go on singing for a little morsel of food. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that if I am born again, I would like to be born as a bowl. So there are many bowls who sing these songs and they describe these wonderful truths in very simple Bengali songs. So one person says, what is so great about this king? This king is creating a palace, he is employing so many people, he has to work so hard. I can create that same palace in my mind. So he says, it is as useless as this Chittakasha. Is it worth more? Because I am happy, I have nothing, I don't even have a hut to live. And that person is spending all his life, and perhaps he may not finally live in that house, or even if he lives in that house, he'll just occupy a small corner of that house. He's not going to live in that whole palace. But he builds that Saptabhuvan, I mean, seven-storied palace. That he says, but the bowl is happy because he can create this palace in his mind. So that is the feeling that he has. He says it is as worthless as this palace. I just go to my Chitta Akasha, the mental space. That's why we say when there is too much of pressure on some person, they say, please give me some mental space. Don't just impinge upon me, your thoughts, your ideas. Just allow me. We run away, you said, give me some space. It's not just physical space. What the person wants is, he wants the mind to be free. So that is mental space. So that mental space is creates another universe, which is as important, if not more important, than this physical space. So we may have properties, we may have all these wonderful Mahakasha, we live in that, we dwell in that, we take so much joy that we have a bigger house, bigger palaces, and so many things. No doubt that is Akasha. You are growing in that Akasha. But when in Mahakasha, as these bowls point out to you, you can create a bigger house if necessary and be happy, because ultimately if happiness is what is the happiness or bliss is the goal, then you might as well create a mental space and be happy in that. So Chittakasha is, according to this philosophy, is equally important. Then there is what is known as Chidakasha, not Chittakasha, Chidakasha. Chit Akasha, it becomes Chidakasha. Chidakasha means the space occupied by pure consciousness, which is Buddhi. Buddhi is one way to reach that Chidakasha. So that is why we meditate on the Lord within any deity. It can be a mother, it can be father, it can be Shiva, Shakti, any aspect of God. All aspects of God are nothing but pure Satchidananda, who has come and occupied this Mahakasha. Mahakasha is Shiva, Mahakasha is Krishna, Mahakasha is Rama, or different gods, Buddha, Christ. You can take anyone. But you have to know for certain that the God that you are meditating upon is not in Mahakasha. He may have a form. You enter that form. Form is a doorway through which you leave the house and go into the vast open space. So he is a door. No doubt we need a door or a window to go out. So the Mahakasha gives rise, when you deepen your spiritual practice, it becomes Chittakasha. Then you create a mental image. That's why they say once you are initiated with a mantra, which is sound, which sound of course pervades the Mahakasha, but then you are supposed to graduate from that Mahakasha to the Chittakasha. So you do mental repetition. So you create the form in your mind, you repeat the name in your mind, which is obviously infinitely powerful than the Mahakasha. Mahakasha imposes many limitations. In fact, it is affected by other vibrations. Of course, Chittakasha is also affected by other vibrations. If you have too many disturbing people with disturbing minds and thoughts around you, you can't meditate. You can try it. Why do people go to holy places, shrines, quiet places, even going to a natural place where there is nobody, only plants, animals, and plants and other things? You go to the forest because your vibrations are not, your space is not restricted. Your Chittakasha, though it is still full of old thoughts, memories, uh, anxieties, worries, which you are carrying wherever you go, but still, at least the external forces, thoughts are not impinging. It can be felt. If you see five people with different, very disturbed people sitting, I can challenge you cannot meditate. If you sit in there, but the converse is also true. If for example, there are people with wonderful meditative state of mind, even the most disturbed mind, if he sits in our center, I was told by one of our old Swamis that they practice what is called as Christian Science, the Unitarians who occupied the building before us. So their method was simple. I don't know how effective it was. If they were sincere, they could have been effective because it uses the same principle. Their only service that they didn't do verbal counseling. Anybody with a disturbed ailment, physical, mental, any kind of ailment, who was a member of that group, they called it Christian Science. The Unitarians practice that. He would be made to sit in the center, and all the practitioners, of course, advanced practitioners, who were also members and who obviously, uh, whose minds were in a very peaceful state, If they were disturbed, perhaps they would not come there. They would sit around that person and send their prayers. That see, it worked miracles. Otherwise, they would not have done it. It might have worked miracles. We do not know, depending on who the people were. So they believed, firmly believed, that just sending positive vibrations would cure that member who was unfortunate to have some ailment, physical or mental, and thus cure him. So it does happen. So when we are in Chitta Kasha, just as we are in Mahakasha, the physical voice, the noise, the sounds, all the disturbances, it doesn't allow us to meditate. But that is just at the physical level. But even if everything is quiet, if the Chitta Kasha is full of noise, due to past memories, past words, past actions, we are carrying that. You remember, in a subtle form, they are just bubbling up. So even in a very quiet place, they will not allow us to get peace. I mean, have that kind of peace. But when we go to Chidakasha, as I said, the goal is to go, and for all the three, to go from Mahakasha to Chittakasha and Chittakasha to Chidakasha. It's the grace of the mother, because she is capable of giving you whatever you need in the Mahakasha, which is very easy for her. If you ask for mental peace, maybe it's a bit difficult. Chittakasha, she can calm down your mind. So give some kind of semblance of peace. So that is also her grace, repeating her name, repeating God's name. That helps you to reach a state where you get united with what is known as Chidakasha, the pure conscious principle, which has been, of which the counterpart is Shakti. So Sri Ramakrishna, we normally sing a song on the Divine Mother, as on the Divine Mother or Holy Mother Sri Sharda Devi, saying Prakritim Paramam. So Parama Prakriti is one who is one with Shiva. At the state of Chidakasha, when we transcend that, she is Parama Prakriti. She has not come to confuse. She is one with Shiva at that state. So when you meditate on Divine Mother as part of that Chidakasha, as Buddhi Rupena Samstita, she is established as Buddhi. I don't want to see her as Shakti, though the topic today was the divine power. But Buddhi is also a power. That's why I mentioned this idea of Chidakasha. That is also a power. Shakti Rupena also can mean spiritual Shakti. You don't have to think that Shakti means always Rajasic power, power to dominate over others, power to do so many things, activities and all. That is also Shakti, that is physical. But as we move from Mahakasha to Chittakasha and Chittakasha to Chidakasha, Sri Ramakrishna says that is the real goal. When you go from gross to subtle, and what will help you in this, it's not just the Divine Mother's grace, but Divine Mother's grace comes in the form of mantra, especially the sound. So sound has also three aspects. The science of mantra, if you see, mantra, there is Vaikhari, the external form of that sound or mantra, which has its jurisdiction is Mahakasha. It can do many things for you in the Mahakasha, but not beyond that. So that is why they say, if because you are on a spiritual path, you don't need, assuming that you don't need anything in the Mahakasha, which you have earned or acquired by your own strength, by your own prana, own Shakti. You have had enough. If you feel that, and you want really to graduate to the next level, then we we repeat the mantra, do sadhana, or repeat the prayer like Gayatri. The meaning is the same. You awaken the buddhi within us so that we can find our true space, that is Chidakasha. That is the sum and substance of everything that we see around us. So the solution always to all our problems, Mother does solve. She solves problems at a Mahakasha level, fine, but that is temporary. She can solve give you some kind of mental peace at the Chittakasha level. But her real goal is to take you back home after the Mela is over. So, this mother as a divine power, power in the three aspects, as I mentioned here: gross, thula, sukshma, subtle, and causal. Causal or the Chidakasha, where everything is manifest, or you are on the doorway to that ultimate realization of the pure consciousness which you really are. So that is the real purpose of worship of the Divine Mother. So, but as I said, the Chandi is not meant for only spiritual aspirants. It's meant for people who have desires, who have certain things. And Mother is equally compassionate towards the child who is asking for toys, or the child if he's grown up. So she can supply the needs of all. What we want from Mother, that we alone have to decide, or rather, she has to decide by giving us the right understanding or buddhi. That is the idea. So I'll conclude. If there are questions, you can ask.
No, sorry. You mentioned the Anahata Bani and also Shabda Brahman. Are they interchangeable, those terms? They're the same thing.
Shabda Brahman and
Anahata. Anahata.
huh?
Anahata.
Anatadvani. Okay. No, no. Anatadvani is at the individual level, which you hear in the heart of your hearts. Anatadvani. But Shabda Brahman, what Vedanta describes, is the manifestation of that pure consciousness as Prakriti. When the whole creation, as I said, in the beginning was the Word was with God. So it was with God, but it was God Himself. But unfortunately, the Word comes out and then the creation starts. Not unfortunately, that is the play of the Lord. And the idea is you have to go to that holding to on to the Shabda Brahman. Shabda Brahman is Om. Om is the Shabda Brahman. It's not the same as.
Would anyone else like to ask any questions?
Other than space, what's the other definition for Akasha?
Space, it's space is not a proper definition. As I said, if you understand space in these three dimensions, then you have the concept of Akasha. So Akasha is just space. It is space. Space is a very complicated thing. If you go to geometry and if you try to go deep, when you try to find out what space is, it is a very difficult thing. But as I said, Sri Ramakrishna explains it so nicely. It can be mental space also. We normally think space means the space that maybe say like vacuum, where you find solids, liquids, everything encompassed within that space. No, that is a very, very, very limited idea of space. That is known as Mahakasha. It is Akasha, but it is Mahakasha. Okay?
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Hello, can I speak in Gujarati?
Yes, yes.
ફિઝિકલ બોડીમાં આપણે રહીએ આપણે અંદર ખરાબ વિચારો ને બધું આવતું હોય તો હાઉ કેન વી નો ફિઝિકલી કોઈ મંત્ર એવું કોઈ જપ છે કે આપણે ઓળખી શકીએ કે પરમાત્મા આપણી અંદર છે.
બધા જપનો એક જ પર્પસ છે. I'll answer in English, it's okay?
Yeah.
Jawab? I'll translate the question. So his question is, when we are in the physical body, is there any mantra or anything which can remind us or take us to the consciousness, isn't it? Yeah. So it's all mantras are meant for that. But as I said, people use mantras for different purposes. If you shout it loudly, and you want some benefits in the Mahakasha, that is the physical space, you will get that. It's not that you won't get it. There are many of the yagnas, ahutis we do. We just want some benefit physically, and if you are happy with that, mantras are there for that also. It's mantras are of various kinds, but all the mantras, if they are real mantras or which take you to higher spiritual reality, it has the power to awaken that consciousness, open that Chidakasha, and make you intuitively understand what that Chidakasha is. So first the mantra will do is, when you repeat it mentally, it will take you to your Chittakasha. So you start living, when you start doing the mantra, you will start living in the Chittakasha, from the Chidakasha. For the time being, you will forget everything. You are supposed to when you are doing japa. People can think of Mahakasha when they are doing japa. That means they are not focused. But if they are really focused, they have to deal only with their thoughts. That is the second stage where the mantra, whichever mantra you utter, is supposed to quieten the thoughts. Yoga, chitta vritti nirodha. Chitta's waves, it will calm down. That is why we have to repeat. Once you repeat again and again and again, at a certain stage, the mind chitta kasha becomes calm. Then that same mantra, they call it mantra jagrut thai gyu chhe. They say all mantras are not jagrut, or all mantras are not awakened. So you have to awaken that mantra. Just repeating does not ensure that your mantra has been awakened. So if you see all the great mantra yogis or those who have done japa sadhana, Holy Mother also says that the mantra has to be awakened. That means what we are doing is in Mahakasha, if you are chanting it loudly, like Gayatri Mantra, we go on doing our whole life, we may go on doing it. But it will remain in the Mahakasha. Its benefits will be felt only in the Mahakasha. But if you go to the Chittakasha, the mantra, if it is repeated in a subtle way, it opens a higher layer. But it still needs to go deeper. When it is awakened, when you repeat it, then your Chidakasha will be open. The pure consciousness, જે ચૈતન્ય છે અંદર, એ ત્યારે જાગૃત થશે, એ પહેલા નહીં.
So it means we have to jump more.
More, or not only more. See, more is one thing. Yeah, repetition is always better. But the quality is important. The japa has to be done in such a way that you have a very strong yearning, vyakulta. Vyakulta કહે છે ગુજરાતીમાં. So you should have a feeling that that mantra is awakening the consciousness within. It may not awaken immediately. It will take a lot of time. First thing it will do is go to the second level and calm down your mind. That is the first sign.
I notice it takes long time. But because of the mind disturbance, you are ભટકી જાય મન માંથી.
શું મટકી જાય?
આપણું ચેત, એટલે આપણે જે જપ કરતા હોય
એ તો એનો નેચર જ છે ભટકવાનો. Means its very nature of the mind is to wander. So there is nothing surprising about it. Because of that, we have to catch hold of our Chittakasha, means the space, and that is why they ask you to go to solitude, ekantavas જેને કહેવાય. શાંતિમાં એટલીસ્ટ વધારે ભટકે નહીં, એટલા માટે શાંતિથી એક જગ્યા ઉપર બેસીને જપ કરીએ ત્યારે થોડીક શાંતિ આવે. You will not get full peace because mind still has the capacity to throw thoughts based on your past smritis. We have collected so many smritis. કેટલી બધી જૂની વાતો આપણે કચરો નાખ્યો છે, તો હવે કચરો તો બહાર આવશે ને. If you had been careful, but no person is careful. We don't even know only આ જન્મનું નહીં, last લાઈફનું સ્ટોક પણ હશે. So it takes time. So it will come, but you don't have to worry. It is not for one mind, it is for all minds. All minds are of the same nature.
Thank you.
Yes.
How can we be in the Mahakasha or Chittakasha world and being a true Karma Yogi attain the Chidananda or
Chidakasha.
state?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Or is it possible to do that and then come back to your Karma Yogi or go back to your Chidananda state?
No, no,
Is
no.
that-
Yeah,
is that
I
something-
got your question. It's a very interesting question. The question is the three types of Akasha: Mahakasha, which is the physical space; Chittakasha, the mental space; and Chidakasha, the pure conscious space. So, how to, in fact, your mind is doing that all the time. Nobody is in the Mahakasha all the time. Say, for example, you are in deep sleep. You lose sense of space, isn't it? You don't know where you are. You are just sleeping, deep sleep. Sushupti. You call that as Sushupti. So, in that state, you may be in Mahakasha, your body is in the Mahakasha, but you have gone into what is known as Chidakasha temporarily, but you are ignorant, you will come down back. But when you are in the dream state, you are in the Chittakasha, you are not in Mahakasha because you are on the bed, you are sleeping. Of course, you are in Mahakasha, but your limit is restricted. So you don't do any karma, but at the same time, you are doing karma at the Chittakasha level. Okay? So whether you want it or not, throughout the day, you are actually moving from Mahakasha, you are already moving, so you don't have to learn to do that. Only thing is, the more time you spend in meditation or Chidakasha, the other two Akashas are easily negotiable. You can negotiate it better, negotiable. Because when you see the quality of the mind, if it increases, if your concentration increases, you will find your work will improve. So not that you have to give up work, not that you can give up thinking. You can't do that. You will, if you don't do consciously, unconsciously you will dream. So you will be in your Mahakasha for some time, then go, even when you are daydreaming, for example, you're just sitting and daydreaming that you are doing something. You are not doing anything sitting on a chair, but you are already transported to that Chittakasha. So it's not that you go, it's not compartmental. Now I'm in, if even if when you are in Mahakasha, you are doing your work, you are meditating also. You can meditate. You can be in all the planes simultaneously. So don't be under the impression that I go from here, then I go there, and from there I go there, and then come back down. How to come back? There's no coming or going. We are all in Mahakasha, most of us. Except when you go to Samadhi, Sri Ramakrishna did not know where he was. He was in Samadhi. He did not know who was near him. Everything in the world had vanished for him. But other than that, most of us are mostly in Mahakasha. Isn't it? Now and then we just enjoy a little bit of Chittakasha. And if we are very lucky, by the grace of, if we repeat the mantra properly, maybe a slight glimpse of the Chidakasha. Even slight glimpse is enough.
You said Shushupta Avastha.
Sushupta is it's a ignorance. Don't compare it with the Chidakasha because you are in Chidakasha, but you are not aware. When you come down in the dream state, and when you come down, when you wake up, oh, you will say, I had a very good sleep. So I was in Chidakasha, I don't know how long, maybe 3 minutes. You don't know 3 minutes, but 90 minutes you would have dreamt. So you were in Chittakasha most of the time, but when you come to the Mahakasha, you don't remember all those things. Do you remember? You just get a feeling whether you have slept well or not. If you had been in Chidakasha, you don't have to take sleeping tablets. Oh, I have had good sleep, which is very rare. As you grow, you'll understand you don't get sleep. If you meditate well, they say it is as good as deep sleep, but much more, the quality is much better. Then you don't need much sleep. If you meditate, because your quota is there, you have to reach that level and stay for a comparatively long time. As you progress, you will be more living more in that plane, in that space. Not plane, it's this plane, everything is here only. So sitting here, you can go into Chidakasha, like Sri Ramakrishna. Suddenly you would lose external consciousness. First there will be thoughts, some song he will hear. He will go into that Mahakasha plane, and suddenly that song will remind him of the Chittakasha, and he will go. We call it Samadhi, which is not very common. So we might go, as I said, sleep is just an example I gave you. But the difference between Samadhi and sleep is after going to Samadhi, when you come down, then you are in a different plane. Whereas after a good sleep, if you come down, you can just fall down to Mahakasha and just be engaged in everything. Good sleep doesn't ensure that. That's the difference. Otherwise, both will be the same, na? Yeah.
Would anyone else like to ask any questions?
Yeah,
So can you put your hand up? I can't
yeah.
see.
No. Amita.
Okay.
That's something I was thinking about when we were told to do japa. We were told not to say it loudly. And not to say loudly as it sounds. The best one is always doing it mentally.
Mentally.
Yes. Could you just explain to us why?
Yeah, as I told you, na, each subsequent level, the goal is to go from Mahakasha, where sound plays an important role. Everything is physical. So we assume that one who has taken initiation or at least wants to practice serious, do some spirit practice, he would have had a desire to remain and control his Chittakasha. So that is why they say you are not a beginner now. It's like you have graduated to high school now, you don't need to study the alphabets. It is something like that, nothing more than that. But repeating loudly, and another thing is according to tantras, not according to other, there are other mantras which can be shouted loudly. In fact, they say Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. People just go on doing it loudly. There are some traditions which allow, but according to tantras, if it is repeated loudly, its power becomes, obviously it is at a lower level. It becomes very, very gross, and it doesn't have the same effectiveness. So you have to start from there, but don't end with Chittakasha. The mantra, when it is awakened, it will repeat itself in the Chidakasha. When it is awakened. Mantra Chaitanya, they call it mantra. Now, every mantra has a Chaitanya. So when you go on repeating, it's not that it can be experienced so easily, because right now we are struggling to deal with the Chittakasha or mental waves. If it can do that, that is more than enough, at least in the beginning. But when it becomes spontaneous, you just, without any effort, it will repeat itself. That stage is known as ajapa japa. They call it in Christian tradition the prayer of the heart. When the heart, prayer of the heart means not that emotions are involved. Prayer of the heart means your consciousness has been awakened. So you may not verbalize it, but it repeats itself as a prayer.
So when we say
Which
awakening, your mantra is awakened.
is awakened, yeah.
It's a continuous japa that happens
It
spontaneously.
may happen spontaneously. Yeah. It may happen. It usually happens spontaneously, but not in the beginning. In the beginning, you have to realize that this repetition is not just in the mental space. It has just transcended, and you feel it is a living mantra. That is why they ask you to use the form also, because name always goes with the form. So name and form, the form, if it is a bright form or a form which is full of light and illumination, then it helps. Though it may be physical light, but the idea of light, that is why do we pray to the sun in Gayatri Mantra? Buddhi, Om Bhur Bhuvasva Tat Savitur. Savitur, why do you meditate? Because light is symbolic of knowledge. So it's not the physical light of the sun that we are worshipping, but it helps us to show that all the darkness of ignorance is removed by the sun. Otherwise, if the sun is not there, we will be tumbling, we don't see things properly, we don't understand things properly. So we need the sun to enlighten us. So it stands for Chidakasha, the sun symbol. But you can replace it with any god or goddess whom you are meditating. But the idea is he should be imagined as Chaitanya Swarup, pure consciousness. Not the physical form may be there because he has a form. Every god has a form. Either the artist's imagination. For example, the Shiva is here. Shiva is not conceived by the painter. We do not know, there's no photography of Shivas. But so many people have used the form. Some descriptions are there, which are known as Dhyana Mantra. Kali, every Chandi, every chapter of Chandi begins with a Dhyana Mantra. Dhyana Mantra gives you the description of the form as seen by the rishis or sadhakas. So that form, when the mantra was awakened, when they repeated the mantra, they saw certain forms and they put it in. So they are very powerful dhyana mantras. We have dhyana mantra of Ramakrishna also. That on the previous Thakur's birthday I explained. It is a long mantra, a long stotra, but 3 verses we normally, Vimala Paramahamsam, Ramakrishnam Bhajamaha. So each god or goddess has a dhyana mantra. So that helps. It is not the mantra that we should repeat, but it helps us to visualize the form, which great people who had awakened the mantra, they have seen it and they have put it in a descriptive form. So every Chandi, every Kali, before you do the chapter, there is a Dhyan mantra of the deity of that chapter. Kali, Kalika Dhyana. So it's there in all other scriptures also. Dhyan on Vishnu and Saraswati, there is a Dhyan mantra. So they are not random. You can't just chant any Dhyan mantra. These are all Siddha mantras, Dhyana mantras, conceived by people who had real visions of the deity and then they put it on whatever description they saw. And if you meditate, it becomes easy to awaken the mantra. That's the idea. Yeah. Here.
Here it is. Here.
You described mother as Shakti.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
gave an analogy of the child going through the mela and mother is kind of
Yeah.
just witnessing until we are tired.
Not witnessing, she's taking.
Taking us.
He says, I want to go on that roundabout. He will
Yeah, so
arrange everything.
this journey continues. So how then we hear about mother's grace? How do we then invoke mother's grace?
No, throughout there is grace. You see, when the child wanted something, the mother did. The child wanted something higher, mother had a capacity to give. That is the grace.
Grace turns back home. Like
Yeah, ultimately bringing us back home. That is the highest grace. But even the lower things are grace. Na? If a mother gives us a chocolate, that is also grace.
How does that work?
Oh, that will come spontaneously. You can't train for that because you see, unless you are done with lower things, mother will say, why not just continue? That is the fun. She likes to play. Thakur used to say, she is playing this whole game. She doesn't want a child to go to college all of a sudden. She said, you be in the school, enjoy your game. But if somebody wants, if one is very keen and pesters the mother, I want to go home. Some children may be there who may say, I don't want to see the whole Mela. I have seen enough. I am tired now. So her grace is she will take you back home. She will not say, no, you have to see everything. That the child has to decide. If it wants to see more, says, good. That is also her grace. You see, the thing is, this is a very difficult, it is known as self-surrender, Sharanagati. So you just take whatever she gives, considering it to be her grace. That is one way. Second thing is like Thakur. If you don't give, I'll kill myself. That child was different, not like us. We'll realize after. Maybe someday I will get realization by mother's grace. She is there. Right now, I am happy. I will call you when I really want to go home. But Thakur wanted to go home immediately. So he prayed, he had some patience, he lost patience, and he said, now you either take me home or I'll. So then mother had to agree. So that is her grace.
So anybody else want to ask any question?
Okay. We have some questions from.
Online, okay.
Swami Vivekananda took permission of Holy Mother before leaving for West to preach the mission in the West. Would he have considered her consent to go abroad same or
No, no.
more than Thakur's consent? Somebody is asking.
No. Thakur told him to go, not Holy Mother. Why will he tell? I mean, the question is, he took permission of Holy Mother to go abroad because Sri Ramakrishna pointed out to him. He did not point out to Holy Mother, you go abroad. So why would he ask? And what would Holy Mother do? She could do much more sitting in India. Oh, who has asked? Anyway, so- yeah. Huh? Immediately? No, I'm fine. I just need some water. So we'll conclude. You can switch on. No. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.